Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Modern Warfare 2019. I know it's weird, I don't usually cover that game here on the channel, but we have some news. Some people are talking about this, and I figured it was worthy of a video and worthy of discussion, and kind of diving deep into the idea of skill-based matchmaking. Of course, everybody's favorite subject here in the COD franchise. So the news is, it's not overly news, but Modern Warfare 2019 is starting to roll back the number of servers that it has. This happens, the way I've been told, the way it was described to me, this happens a lot with older games, right? What they do is nowadays they have dedicated servers for all these different games, and over the years, as less and less people are playing those games, and as they prepare for the launch of new games, they start to get rid of some of those dedicated servers and go back to the old school peer-to-peer hosting that you may remember from games like Call of Duty 4, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, and so on. Remember back in the day where somebody in the lobby would be the host, and then they would have what is called host advantage because they're playing on their own internet connection and everyone else is connecting to that person's internet connection, which means that person has a lot better latency and typically does a lot better. And then in later years, for some reason, they decided to change that with lag compensation, and then we started calling it host disadvantage. So yeah, peer-to-peer hosting is apparently starting to happen a bit more frequently, not all the time. Like, you can go and play for a couple of hours and you may not find a peer-to-peer game while playing Modern Warfare, but you may also run into it. Just really depends on what's going on that day, how many people are on, where you are in the world, so on and so forth. Well, some of the discussion here is being kicked up about peer-to-peer hosting and skill-based matchmaking. If the game is connecting you to another person and the internet and the lobby is being ran through that person, then will that get rid of skill-based matchmaking? If the dedicated server is not necessarily there for your match, will skill-based matchmaking be drastically decreased? And I decided to do some research into this because this is all fascinating to me. I don't have the answers myself, and I want to see if I could find some people online that can maybe fill me in. And I found this really interesting interview with a guy named Josh Menk. I'm gonna say it's Menk. How do you pronounce that? I'm gonna say Menky. I don't know. Either way, he worked on matchmaking in Halo. He worked on matchmaking in COD, and currently he works at Riot Games. Well, in an interview with GDC, he stated that Call of Duty has always had skill-based matchmaking, and this is something we've actually heard about previously, but he says Call of Duty 4 did have some skill-based matchmaking. All of them always have, it's just the math and science have gotten better over the years and caught up. If you grew up on it back then, your expectations are very different than if you have it now. And then he goes on in the interview, I'll link it down there in the description, about Fortnite, and how Fortnite had the exact same situation where the game first came out, lots of kids are playing it, obviously it's a very kid-friendly game, and there was very loose skill-based matchmaking, but over time they started doing more testing, they started putting in more bots and things like that, until eventually they have the super thick skill-based matchmaking that Fortnite is kind of known for. And if you're somebody who, and there's definitely a COD parallel here, but if you're somebody who started playing Fortnite back when it first came out, when there was virtually no skill-based matchmaking, it was just based off your connection, you got in there and you stomped on children, like actual literal children, you probably had a lot more fun back then. And the same is pretty much true in COD. If you start off in a game like Call of Duty 4, like I did, and you put in the time, you put in the effort, you became an above average player with very loose skill-based matchmaking, because you were an above average player, you always performed above average, and that's what felt good about those old days. Like, your time was like directly correlated to the amount of fun you would have, because you play the game a bunch, you'd get better at the game, and the better you got, the better you did. And the game wasn't trying to match other players up with a similar skill level or anything like that as much as they are today. And so the more you played, the better you got, the more fun you had. That was like pretty, that was the formula way back in the day, even though there was still some forms of skill-based matchmaking. So the idea that maybe peer-to-peer hosting is going to get rid of skill-based matchmaking in a game like Modern Warfare 2019 just simply isn't true, because skill-based matchmaking did exist all the way back when we only had peer-to-peer hosting. It was, I forget what year that they finally went like more dedicated servers. They talked about it for years and years and years. They said they had some like special listen servers. They said like it's a hybrid system of some dedicated and some peer-to-peer, but it never really worked out until the more modern games. And I guess coincidentally, we have a lot more thick skill-based matchmaking in these modern games, but I think that's really just a situation where the technology has gotten to the point where they can have those dedicated servers for every single match all the time, and all, like Josh was saying, the math and the science and everything has gotten better, quote unquote, to make it so skill-based matchmaking is a lot more thick. So if you're playing Modern Warfare 2019, you're going to find yourself playing on other people's connection as compared to just, you know, connecting to a dedicated server within your area. And as a result, nothing's going to change besides your connection may be a little bit worse. It's kind of this thing where they try to save money by not running as many servers. You know, if you think about it, think about like how many servers they may have had at launch for a game like Modern Warfare 2019. And nowadays, I'm pulling numbers completely out of my ass right now, but let's say, you know, only 30% of the player base compared to like what they had back there at launch. If only like 30% of their player base is still playing, they don't need all those servers. All those servers are just sitting there just costing them money, and there's really no sense in them doing that. So that's kind of like the explanation. That's how it was explained to me. That's how I did a little bit of research going into this video. And from a business perspective, yes, it does make sense, but it was also more interesting finding that interview right there and reading about the idea of skill-based matchmaking and how it's evolved and changed over time, because apparently the idea from the perspective of people like Josh here who were working with COD, they were working on Halo, the idea was always to have skill-based matchmaking in their games. It was always a thing, but they keep working on it, and they keep working on it, and they keep working on it, and now they're getting really good at it. And so now skill-based matchmaking obviously is as thick as ever, and there's definitely kind of a double standard depending on what game you're playing. He said, like right there in the interview, if you're somebody who, like, you know, grew up on COD, you started playing COD for a long time, then you hate the idea of skill-based matchmaking now. But then if you hop on a game like Valorant, you expect the skill-based matchmaking to be there, and no one really seems to complain all that much about it, right? It's kind of like that double standard. I think it does go back to what Josh was saying. It's because we grew up in a world without skill-based matchmaking, and it felt really good because it wasn't a game that was trying to just make you sweat your ass off and never actually feel that sense of progression or anything like that, because I do think inherently skill-based matchmaking is a bad thing once you get to a certain point. There should be some protected bracket for the people that literally can barely play the game. We've seen clips of that online. Sure, maybe have a protected bracket to an extent, but one of the fun things about video games in general is seeing that sense of progression as you get better, which is true of everything, right? When you first go to the gym and you start lifting, you're going to see that sense of progression. When you first start shooting baskets, you know, at the gym, once again, I suppose, you know, you may not be all that good right away, but you keep on going, you keep on doing it, and suddenly you're playing in pickup 3v3 tournaments and you're doing pretty well because the amount of time and effort you put into your craft can, in the end, make you better at it, right? And the same is true in COD, the same is true in video games, but when they're constantly moving the goalposts and making it so you don't actually see the fruits of your labor, it gets exhausting, especially in a medium that is supposed to be a form of entertainment and a form, for some people, lots of people I would imagine, relaxation. So just some thoughts and feelings right there. I hope you guys all enjoyed this short little video here today. Leave your thoughts and feedback on all this down there in the comment section below, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.